Hi, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Today I wanted to bring you 5 more books that I don't hear enough about. A few of these are from this year, so they weren't on my list that I did at the beginning of the year, but I wanted to share them with you because a few of them have recently become favorites, as well as there's more books that I want to talk about that are favorites of mine, that I feel like maybe they were talked about, but now they're not. And I mean, anyway. The first one is Fire by Kristin and Cashore. So I recently did the retro review for Graceling. I talk about Graceling all the time, but I feel like I don't talk about Fire. I've never mentioned Fire on my channel yet, and so I think it's time. This takes place in an adjacent world to Graceling, and it takes place about 50 years beforehand. You don't know that going into this book, that it takes place beforehand. But I'm just letting you know they do connect to each other, and you find out how near the end of the book, and they connect in a very interesting way. But this book was also really good. It's about the title character, her name is Fire, and she's born with the gift to be able to manipulate people. She's not a Graceling though. In this world they have different kinds of gifts, which it's too complicated to get into in this kind of a video. You could look it up on Goodreads and but it's a different kind of magic. But she's able to manipulate people, but she doesn't want to use her power. However, the kingdom that she lives in calls on her to assist them, and so she has to use her powers to help the king of this world. But they reluctantly, they don't want her help, so she has to kind of deal with some prejudices in that way, as well as getting them to understand that it isn't her fault that she has this gift, and she would rather not use it against anyone, but she's using it to help them. So anyway, this book is also great. I read this after I read Graceling, and I loved it just as much. The next book is Sea of Shadows by Kelley Armstrong. I've had this book in my collection for quite a while. This is a trilogy, and it's about these twin sisters named Ashlyn and Mariah, I think is how you say their names, and they are the Keeper and the Seeker. And so in every generation, these twin girls are born, and their job is to help ferry the dead into the underworld. So one of them can see the ghosts, and one of them can sing them into the next world. I hope I'm explaining that correctly. But one time something goes wrong and people begin rising from the dead, and they are a little bit like zombies, but a little more calculating, and it's scary. It's scary. But I loved this trilogy. It was so interesting. There's 3 books. It's Sea of Shadows, Empire of Night, and Forest of Ruin. I didn't grab out the whole series because I'm keeping this slim, but this series is super good. It's such a good fantasy, and Kelley Armstrong's writing is amazing. So yeah, a little bit older of a book, but definitely check it out if you're in a dry spell. And how nice is it to have all 3 books in the series be out, so you can just binge them all? Isn't that great? Up, so the next 3 are all reads from this year. So this one is Zero Repeat Forever. This book is so good. This is by G.S. Prendergast. I think her name is Gabrielle Prendergast, and this is supposed to be the first in a series, but the thing is, there's no date on when the next one is coming out, and this came out a year and a half ago, and it's killing me. This book is so good, so I really hope there's a sequel. But this book is about, his name is Eighth. That's all he knows, is that he is the 8th one of, he's the 8th level of whatever creature he is, because he's a kind of creature, and these creatures have invaded Earth. And Raven is 16 years old, and she is at a troubled youth summer camp when the apocalypse happens. So it's a wilderness survival summer camp. So there's a group of teenagers who were the counselors, and she was a counselor there, and they are all trying to survive together. And at the beginning of this novel, her boyfriend dies that's there at camp with her, and so there's some animosity between her and her boyfriend's brother, and so there's animosity between all these people trying to survive. And then Raven runs into Eighth, and they have some interesting escapades together. And so Eighth, is the invading force, but he kind of falls in love with Raven. This isn't a spoiler, it's in the flap. That fly again, oh my word. And yeah, it was just so interesting. This book went to some interesting places I didn't think of about why these creatures are invading. And like I said, I want a sequel and I want it now. Next, this was one of my favorite reads of the year. You will definitely hear me talk about this more, but I feel like I haven't talked about it enough yet, and I need to, and that's The Savior's Champion by Jenna Moreci. This is amazing. It's so good. I have a full book talk and spoilers for this one. Jenna is a self-published author. She's on AuthorTube. She's amazing. She's the sweetest. She does author videos. She's working on the sequel for this, which is like also takes place at the same time as this one. So this is about Tobias, and he enters the Sovereign's tournament to get money for his family. He doesn't enter the tournament because he wants to be in it, which the prize for the tournament is you get to marry the Savior, who the Savior is a really important figure in the land, and the magic that she possesses keeps the land fruitful and going. So when the Savior comes of age, she has to marry and produce a new Savior. And yeah, Tobias enters this to gain money for his family, not because he wants to win the Savior, but he still doesn't want to die either. And yeah, and then there's like these different adventures. There's this labyrinth that tells you what to do, and then there's different challenges. So it's a little like a game of Survivor slash a form of The Bachelor slash a form of The Bachelorette. It is amazing. Like, there's so much. This is an adult fantasy, so know that there is crude language and sexual references and violence, but it's amazing. So yeah, you should read it. So much. There's been some talk about this, but not enough. Like, just blow up Jenna, guys. She's amazing. Buy this book. You won't regret it. It's coming out in paperback now, so you don't have to buy the huge copy, but it's so good. And then finally, this is also one of my favorite reads of the year. I had such a good time with this. I read it almost all in one day, and that is Onyx and Ivory by Mindee Arnett. The second one was just announced, and I am so upset at this moment that I can't remember the name of it, but I think it's like Iron and Gold, or it's another like two things or whatever. But this is about Kate. She is labeled as a traitor because her father was a traitor and he had tried to kill the king. She is a rider. I think they just called her a rider. Sorry, let me check. She's on the relay, which means they like send messages back and forth, but it's really dangerous because there's these dragon-like creatures that come out at night. So the relay people have to be really fast during the day so they don't get stuck out at night. And there is potentially some other kind of, they're called like drakes or whatever, and there are some that can now be out in the daytime, which is just unheard of and really bad because these things are evil, you know how it goes. So Kate, who used to be in love with Corwin, who is the possible one of the heirs to the throne, because also something that's going on in this book is that when this certain signal appears, there's so much going on in this book, guys. When this signal appears, the two brothers in line for the throne have to fight to see who will be king. And so that's either Corwin or his older brother. One of them will be king. And Corwin always thought that he wasn't going to like fight so hard because he didn't want to be king. But now maybe there's some things going on that he doesn't think his brother will handle very well. So maybe he needs to be the king. So who knows with that. But anyway, Onyx and Ivory, I love this. There was horses, which I love. I loved the romance in this too. One of my favorite tropes is we loved each other and then something happened and now we're trying to get back together again. That's literally one of my favorite romantic tropes, which I love. And so the monster is good, the action is good, the fantasy like just started to kick up at the end of it, like what the magic really means. It is amazing. It's so good. Read this book. I also have a review for this one. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this. I want to do these like, once or twice a year because I feel like there's just books that like I'll love them and then I don't see enough people talking about them. So then I need to share them with you. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. You can find me at The Book Refuge on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I put up 2 to 3 videos weekly. So please go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you want to see me pop up in your feed. So thanks for stopping by and have a wonderful day. Bye.